Hello everyone, I'm Jeremy. In this video, I will review the storyline of a film entitled Black Sea. This film is about a submarine captain who is fired because of downsizing. He decides to form his own submarine team to hunt for gold that Nazi Germany is rumored to have left in a submerged submarine at the bottom of the Black Sea. This is a 2014 submarine disaster thriller film directed by Kevin McDonald, written by Dennis Kelly, and starring Jude Law, Scoot McNairy, Ben Mendelsohn, and David Threlfall. Was released in the United Kingdom on 5 December 2014 and in the United States on 23 January 2015. Well, before that, I also want to remind you that this is spoiler content. Film open in an office of the salvage company Agora. Vincent Robinson, by Jude Law, has just learned that he will be let go after working for them 11 years. His HR rep tells him that the business has changed. They no longer need submarines or submarine pilots to look for salvage. It has nothing to do with his work ethic, as he is actually one of their best employees. The HR rep spoke with some of his bosses, and they were able to secure him a severance of £86.40. The rep asks Robinson if he has a pension, a private savings. Robinson interrupts him, telling him he spent 11 years working for Agora and has spent over 30 years in subs. He lost his family due to his dedication to the job. The HR rep uncomfortably tells Robinson they want him to clean his desk out by the end of the day. Robinson goes home to his small, sad apartment, with nothing but old family photos to greet him when he gets there. Robinson tries to be active in looking for another job, but it is clear he is competing with too many men like himself, and that his heart isn't truly in it. He is asked about his 15 years in the Navy and why he left. "I disagreed with someone," he says. Robinson stakes out his son's school and watches him being picked up Chrissy, his ex-wife. Robinson looks on in longing. Later at a bar, Robinson is with his buddy Kirsten, by Daniel Ryan, who has also been fired from Agora. After ranting a bit about their lot in life, Kirsten tells Robinson he knows of a way to make a lot of money and finally live the lives they deserve. Robinson goes to a large mansion where he is met by a lawyer, Daniels, by Scoot McNairy. Daniels tells Robinson that he is only to ask questions directly and not to ask Mr. Lewis, by Tobias Menzies, their investor, how much he will invest and how much he wants. When Robinson sees Lewis, he immediately asks him those two questions, which makes Daniels wince. Over breakfast, Daniels explains what they are looking for. In 1940, the German economy was at near collapse. Having signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, Hitler asked Stalin for an 80 million Reichsmark loan in gold. Legend goes that Hitler sent a U-boat, got the gold loaded, and it was lost at sea. However, Germany broke the pact a few weeks later and started their plans for Russian invasion. The supposed gold was forgotten about, but some say Stalin complied with the loan request and that the gold is still out there. Daniels tells Robinson that the sub is apparently in the Black Sea and that with his help they can get the gold out without any government knowing the wiser. Robinson tells Lewis he is going to need a submarine, which will cost quite a bit of money. He will also need men, at least 12, half British, half Russian, as the machines will be labeled in Russian and he will need them to translate. Lewis tells Robinson that he will take 40% of the first 40 million, 20% of whatever else they find. Robinson, taken aback, agrees with the terms. Robinson is with Daniels and one of his other men, trying to decide which men to take on the expedition. Among the men they will take include Reynolds, by Michael Smiley, Gittins, by Branwell Donaghy, a sailor with a bit of a gambling problem, and Fraser, by Ben Mendelsohn, who Robinson admits is quite a psycho, but is one of the best divers he knows. Daniels gets off the phone in a huff. Apparently, he is being forced to join the crew to make sure everything goes smooth. Robinson goes home and finds a young man, Tobin, by Bobby Schofield, waiting. He says he is a friend of Kirsten, who has committed suicide. Tobin speaks to Tobin inside his apartment and learns that Kirsten overdosed on his anti-depression medication, apparently to make sure the insurance money goes to his family. Kirsten apparently watched over Tobin as a boy and was friendly towards him. Robin is in shock over the death of his friend and angry he is now a man short for the trip. He looks at Tobin and asks how old he is. Tobin tells him he is 18. Robin looks at Tobin, who is obviously starving, and asks if he sleeps hard, eat homeless, or under severe financial stress. He then asks if Tobin has ever been to sea, seeing something in the kit. The location changes to Sevastopol, Crimea. A guide takes a crew out to the submarine, which is old and rusted. The guide laughs, looking at the boat. Boats are like wars. The old ones know how to look after you best, he says in Russian. Robin goes inside the sub and begins to inspect everything. At one point, he finds 3 orange suits and hides them away. He tells the men to begin loading the boat. The men begin to load the boat with supplies. All the men, save for Robin, don't like the presence of Tobin, so they play a joke on him, sending him on a non-existent errand of washing the sub windows and sweep the chimney. When Robin realizes what they did, they all laugh. Robin tells Tobin that the joke was a good thing, for that means they like him. Robinson is told of the sub's status by Peters, the oldest man on board. They have 70% battery power, 1 radio circuit if things go bad, and a working diesel engine, though it has a leak that the engineer is having trouble finding. Peters notes that due to this, that if things go south, there is no escape. Daniels balks and asks if they could use the diving suits to escape. Fraser smirks and says they could go outside for 80 feet, but the suits aren't designed to get to the surface. If they sink, they die. Robinson is alerted by Peters that the Russians don't like Tobin, who call him virgin due to his youth and his lack of sea experience. Robin says Tobin stays and to call a meeting of the entire crew so they know what they are working for. Robin tells the crew, with one of the Russians translating for the other half of the crew, that they are looking for a lost U-boat filled with gold. Robin makes it clear every man will get an equal share of the gold, which surprises them all. As Robin directs them to make final diving preparations, Daniels pulls him aside and asks why he just didn't pay them a small percentage. Robin says they all get an equal share, since every man is risking everything for this mission. Robin is told by one of the Russians that the engineer, Zaitsev, by Sergei Paskipolis, refuses to have help from Tobin. Robin tells the man to tell Zaitsev that he better work with Tobin, or get the fuck off my boat. Tobin is instructed on how to help Zaitsev. He is overwhelmed, but is willing to do what he needs to do. During a dinner break, cracks are beginning to form between the British and Russian crews. Fraser bemoans that the Russians get an equal share, thinking the Russians are laughing. He then insults the cook, spilling his stew on the table. Robinson notices Tobin looking at something on his phone and asks to look at it. Robin sees it is a picture of a baby. Robin realizes Tobin is about to become a father and is doing this job to provide for his kid. Robin tells Tobin not to worry. Your boy won't want for nothing, he says. Robin goes to the sonar man, Baba, who says a Russian destroyer is nearby. The men wait in silence until it passes. Robin directs the boat to be started up at a slower speed for an hour, then to proceed on as normal from that point on. Tobin and Reynolds are in the sleeping quarters talking about the mission. Reynolds says he and the other guys are like penguins, graceful, alive in the water, useless on dry land. Tobin asks what Reynolds will do with his share. Reynolds says he will pay off debts and give a bit to his family. Suddenly, the Russian crew come in and throws Tobin off the bunk he was on, saying he was on the Russian side. Fraser sees all this and notes they are doing this to rile them up, and perhaps break Tobin in the process. Fraser stews with rage. Robin is told they found the diesel leak and can begin other tasks. Robin agrees but notes the diesel engine should be fixed first. Robin is told that British crew is objecting, believing the Russians are getting too much of the gold. Robin once again must make it clear that every man gets an equal share. Daniels watches the problems brewing, concerned. Fraser sits in the sleeping quarters, toying with his knife. He then heads to the engine room, looking to start something. Tobin is working with Zaitsev in the engine room, when he accidentally turns a knob wrong, burning Zaitsev with fluids. Zaitsev begins to rush him, only to be held back by the Russian translator. Fraser comes in and picks a fight, and kills the translator with the knife. Giddens comes in and is shocked, asking Fraser what he did. In the confusion, diesel fuel spills out of a bucket and sparks on the engine, causing an explosion, killing Gittens and causing the sub to dive. The shock jostles everyone and knocks Robin out cold. In his subconscious, Robin dreams of his family in happier times on the beach. Robin wakes up in the sleeping quarters with a nasty gash on his head. He turns to his side and vomits. Looking up, he notices the body of one of the dead men, and he soon sees the other. As for the sub, they are at the bottom of the ocean. Robin learns that the sub is basically shot, and they have about 36 hours of power. With Fraser causing the death of 2 people, the Russians have taken to the other side of the sub. The British crew has the food, but the Russians have the water, and soon, one side will overpower the other, as the Captain Robin must mediate the dispute. Robin goes down the hall and tries to say a Russian phrase. He sees Morozov and repeats it. Morozov then asks what he is trying to say, and Robin realizes he can speak English. No one had ever asked him if he could. Robin says they need to work together to get the boat working again, and what Fraser has done will not be forgotten. However, Robin needs Baba to work sonar, or they can't get out of their mess. Robin is able to convince the Russians back into a truce, at least temporarily. Robin deduces that if they can get to the U-boat, they can take the drive shaft it has and retrofit it to their submarine and get it working again. Since the Black Sea has no oxygen decay at their depth, the part should be intact. Robin has Fraser and Peters get rid of the bodies, emptying them out the torpedo tubes. By banging on the ship's hull with a large metal piece, Baba is able to improvise sonar to figure out where they are. Fraser is threatened by Zaitsev, saying that when they get out of their mess, he is going to eat his liver. Fraser seems to understand that he is being threatened and says they'll deal with that when the time is right. Robin and Morozov realize that they could either be on the wrong canyon or within 100 meters of the lost U-boat. Robin decides to take a look either way, because if they don't, they are dead anyway. He needs divers though. He has Fraser, but needs at least 3. Fraser asks Peters despite his age, and when pressed to find a third man. Tobin volunteers since he has been scuba diving before. Tobin suits up and is told by Robin to pay attention to Fraser because he knows what he is doing. Robin tells Fraser to do his job right because they only have one shot. Fraser, Peters, and Tobin get out into the sea and jump off the sub. Tools they need are shot out of the torpedo tubes. Peters sets up a light on the sub. As Fraser and Tobin begin to walk in the direction of where the sub might be, Tobin spots one of the dead bodies and nearly falls off a cliff, only saved by the oxygen line. Fraser pulls him back up in the nick of time. Peters is near the sub, creating a cart to carry the drive shaft. They continue to journey to the location, only for the ocean bottom to rise up. Fraser thinks they are in the wrong canyon and are in effect doomed. Robin is crushed. Tobin, however, notices something and takes a closer look. He begins to wipe his hand across the sand and finds a Nazi swastika. The boat had been covered in sand. The crew cheer, having hope again. Fraser, Peters, and Tobin get inside the sunken sub, which has not been flooded, though they can't take their suits off as the air in the sub has become chlorine gas. They find several skeletons, some dead by obvious suicide, others chained up. When Tobin asks if this was a prison sub, Peters is horrified to explain that apparently cannibalism took place during the very end of these men's lives. Peters and Tobin find the drive shaft and begin to take it out. Fraser looks ahead and finds a stack of the gold they have been looking for and laughs in amazement. The 3 load the drive shaft and ask for the pulley system to start going. However, the mud is thick and the cart won't move far. The 3 begin to push at it to make it move, albeit slowly. Morozov tells Robin that the winch is pulling at 4 tons power. Robin realizes that they are trying to move the gold too. Peters realizes that they are getting close to a cliff that will tip everything, but Fraser is unwilling to let the gold go. Daniels panics, telling them to leave the gold, but Robin tells Fraser it is his call if he can get the cart away from the cliff. Fraser and Peters are using metal rails to make the car move and try to turn it, though they lose a few bars of gold in the process. Peters gets on the side of the cliff to try and turn it, but in the process falls off the cliff and his airline is cut. He falls to the bottom of the ocean to his death. Fraser is aghast at this, as he has never lost a man during a dive. Tobin and Fraser return to the sub. The crew is down to 9 men, which is the bare minimum needed to run the sub. Daniels is unwilling because he has no experience and asks to speak to Robin privately. Daniels tells Robin the truth. Lewis was just an actor. There was no rich benefactor. His old company, Agora, funded this expedition. They couldn't get to the gold and fired Robin on purpose to give him the motivation to go after it. When the crew surfaced, they were to get nothing. Daniels says Agora paid Kirsten £30,000 to tell Robin about the job. It is then that Robin realizes that his friend committed suicide out of guilt. Robin is completely enraged at Daniels because people have died for this expedition, and Robin brought Tobin with them. And Tobin is just an innocent kid about to be a father himself. The crew wants to kill Daniels for his betrayal, but Robin tries to calm them down. However, they know if they surface, Agora or the Navy will be waiting for them, waiting to take the gold and make everything they have been through be in vain. Robin proposes they go around some coves and land in Turkey, where they can dock safe. Robin tells them they can give up and be walked over just like the rich assholes, or they can risk a little more for the lives they actually deserve. I'm not going home poor, not after this, Robin says. The crew brings in the gold via the torpedo tubes and retrofits the drive shaft to work on their sub. Robin counts up the gold and estimates they have more than 182 million, and this time it will be all theirs to split. The crew starts up the boat and pull themselves off the seafloor. With Reynolds and Tobin steering the boat, they level out and hold steady. With everyone at their posts, they begin to travel. However, Baba, in doing his sonar job, hears something up ahead and orders a full stop. They stop shy of rocks. Morovos and Robin realize they have fallen off course and are in the middle of a narrow cove. To backtrack will cost them more time, something Robin will not risk. He tells the men they'll go through the cove. The men protest, but Robin counters they are just an hour or so from being set up for life, so isn't a little more risk worth it? The men continue, including Daniel's protest. "Go back to your fucking posts," Robinson snarls. The men eventually comply and proceed through the cove. Daniels begins to whisper to Fraser to kill one of the men. Another man short, and they will have no choice to surface the boat. Fraser begins to lose it. The boat hits the cove wall and begins to scrape against it. Robinson says they just have to get through 30 meters of it and they will be fine. Daniels continues to whisper to Fraser about how Robinson has lost it. Fraser sabotages an instrument and motions to Zaitsev to take a look. With his back turned, Fraser pulls a wrench off a table and beats his skull in. Daniels and Fraser go to Robinson and tell that Zaitsev hit his head and died, but they all notice the blood on Fraser's face and call bullshit on Daniels' story. Finally seeing Daniels for the man he truly is, Robinson calls him stupid and says, "You fucking killed him, Daniels." Meanwhile, one of the other Russians tries to investigate what went wrong and tries to fix it. He accidentally causes an explosion that kills him and blows a hole in the sub, causing it to dive to the bottom. The crew is jostled around wondering where the bottom of the ocean is. The sub finally drops to 350 meters, which is crush depth. Due to the explosion, the sub is now taking on water. Robinson, Fraser, Tobin, and some of the other men are trying to put pressure on the leak in the engine room when a gasket pops, knocking Tobin out cold. As he lies in the water, Robinson sees him and can't leave him to die. He gets Morozov to help drag him out of the room, where he begins to do CPR. More water rushes into the engine room, so Daniels leaves the room and begins to shut the door, trapping Reynolds, Fraser, and Baba, the remaining crew, in the room to drown. Knowingly co-signing them to death, Daniels locks the door. Fraser drowns, while Reynolds and Baba try to hold out as long as possible. The lights shatter, causing a mini explosion which kills Baba. Reynolds is last seen underwater with no way out, and will soon drown. Daniels shuts 2 other compartments, but on the second one gets his belt stuck in the door, trapping him. Morozov sees him alone and realizes he left the others to die. Daniels says he had no choice, and asks for a knife to cut the belt free. Morozov leaves him to die just as he let the others die. Back in the torpedo room, Robinson is able to revive Tobin. Morozov returns to the torpedo room alone. Morozov states that the sub is lost and all the crew are dead. Robinson pulls out 3 suits he found before they left port and explains they are escape suits. Tobin and Morozov put on the suits. Tobin asks if they can at least take one with them in the suits, but Robinson says they can't because it would weigh the suit down too much. Robinson briefly embraces Tobin. "You be there for your boy. That's all that matters," he says. Robinson tells them he will load them into the torpedoes and send them off before escaping via an emergency lever. Morozov gives him a weird look before nodding. Taban and Morozov get into the tubes and Robinson sends them out to escape to the surface. Taban and Morozov make it to the surface. Taban is waiting for Robinson to show up, but Morozov reveals there was no way for Robinson to escape. He sacrificed himself so they could live. Taban breaks down at the realization. Taban and Morozov see the third suit hit the surface. Taban thinks it is Robinson, but is shocked to see the gold and a picture of Robinson's family inside. Robinson stares at the gold he sacrificed everything for, sitting on the gold, waiting for the water to break through and kill him. He thinks of his family in happier times, waiting for the end. I was initially put off by Black Sea because of the heavy accent, which made it hard for me to understand the dialogue. Fortunately, the film is thrilling and captivating, so I was drawn by the film again. The plot keeps me on the edge because there is something happening in rapid succession. The divide between the British and the Russian crew is well portrayed. There are even mind games, which is probably unexpected in a submarine thriller. The claustrophobic environment of the submarine and also the constant fear of catastrophic events happening keep the adrenaline pumping. The ending is unexpectedly moving. I was very sympathetic towards the characters. It even gave me tingles down my body. I enjoyed watching Black Sea.